this is IBM Museum. Ever have one of those times that you go through, you want to do something, and that requires that you do something first, that you have to test something first, and then you look at it and well, let's go through and let's work with this first, get this set up. And it's one of those time frames. I'm going to focus on a particular area of that. So let me get turned around and get to where I'm on the full view of the camcorder. And I've gone through, of course, I did the alternative font sets that are on the PS2 model 3026 for that revision 00 BIOS. And I want to show a little bit more of them, even to go through and dig with debug into the BIOS to show where those sections are. And for that, I had to get a hard drive that has the DOS debug utility on it, or would have enough utilities that I would go through and be able to demonstrate things. And so I went through and I've tested my hard drives, and I'll probably have a video for that, and came up with a good drive. It's got actually PC-DOS 4. It's the IBM version, and that's the much maligned version that IBM came out with. Supposedly the Microsoft programmers were working on OS2 when it was a joint development between Microsoft and IBM, and leaving IBM to develop the next DOS version. And they came out with a PC-DOS 4.00 that was received pretty horribly, and Microsoft went through and reworked it and released it as MS-DOS 4.01. But this is the 4.00 version. And it actually launches the shell command. It's a full screen utility that was started being included with the PC-DOS 4, and of course hit its stride with Microsoft under the MS-DOS 5.0. But that goes through and that uses a mouse. It loads the mouse driver. And so I went through, I've tested the system out enough. I did disconnect the parallel port postcode reader that I always recommend just to have access. I mean, I could go through and pull out a USB power and connect up that way. But I thought, well, let's go through. This is probably a good opportunity. I went through and I tested these postcode readers with their microchannel interposers, but maybe it's time to go through and to test these on that 8-bit, or in this case, ISA bus system. You just use the 8-bit section of these boards, what they were designed to do. Now, the common postcode readers, as I said, I even built one of these back in the day, that I went through, and I think I later tried to use it on an 8086 base MAL30, and it just wouldn't go. And of course, that is, knowing now, that is the IO setting that is on these boards. Now, this is the earlier version. I thought it'd be good to test it first. Remember, it has these IO addresses over here. As a default, it had port 80. And get my camcorder to focus. And so, wow, that's okay. Ring light on. Lighting helps focus a lot of time. There we go. That's ideal. And we've set that over to the microchannel setting on this in this instance as at 0101, that last entry at the bottom. And we would want to go through, I think for the 8086 base small 30 and also the 286 version, that is going to be port 90, I think is how we want to set that. And so that is off, off, on, off for the switch settings. And so let's go through. We're going to go through and test that. And of course, the newer board, they'll show in a moment, that has that all setting on it, that it responds to all the codes, all that. And of course, it's got more of an ASIC chip on it. We'll get to that in a moment. But let's go through and check this out. I'm just going to go through. I have all the adapter slots. And normally this has, it has that arrow towards the back of the system. In this case, it's going through and facing up in this case, just like that. And of course, with the 2-digit, I mean, you can probably see the glow from the camera there, the camcorder, but you won't be able to make out the digits most likely in this view. But I think that'll be fine. And so let's go through. In fact, I do have the video capture set up, but let's go through. Let's get swapped back over to my background display. I even intended to have something up on my background display, and just maybe like a video topic, and didn't get that done. Just was busy and other things. And I'm doing a connection by feel. There I go. And I don't advise people to do that. We will go through and get this over to the VGA input. It says no VGA cable for the moment. But I just want to show that it's and see, we do see LEDs and things like that flickering. FF. We really didn't see any display show there. Just says IBM DOS 4.0. And there's the shell program. So it looks like it's just showing FF on there. It looks like I'm going to need to go through and I could have also used the mouse. It loaded the mouse driver. So let's maybe revert to port 80. See what that does. I mean, I think I'm making contact for all that. It's 84 is Compaq as far as I know. So all off. Remember, I had to go through and flip these switches multiple times before. Let's go through and port 80. Maybe I'm wrong just about guessing, but I had thought that on the ISA PS2s that they moved the port. Okay, so it's FD. I'm still not seeing that turn over. It's going to be a mess to go through, and it's one of the things I set up is I created a boot diskette from this PC-DOS as well, just because I wanted to go through and have the potential on when it's testing drives to be able to boot from diskette as well. And at least that doesn't launch the shell or have anything other than just booting. And I don't have an autoexec.bat, so it prompts for the time and date. So we still have not hit on it right. Maybe we need to go through and try 84. Just because we can. So that's set to 84. And I'm about ready to pull out the new one and just go to the all position just to make sure that I can get. Okay, so there, 84, and it's on code 01 right now. But that looks static again. Let's let it complete the RAM check. Okay, 00. Okay. And it didn't turn over from any characters. That's still flickering. Okay. So let's go through and let's try 90 again. Just because I had to go through and flip these switches a lot of time to get them to register. And that just says 88. We're going to go through and interrupt this otherwise because I don't see it turning over like it should have. So next, do we go for, I wouldn't have thought it'd been the 680. Do we go for the 300? Might as well. I was saying that I didn't know what system used 300 and just has 88 on there for the display again. So is this 680 like the microchannel models? Because that is the only other selection. Okay. And so it's now set to 680. I'm not seeing anything turn over. Okay. So let's look at this newer model. That's kind of crazy that, so it's also set to that 680. It's got a whole bunch of other addresses. It even has 190, 380, 680, and it's got the test for the last position. Got all. This is 1 for position 4. This is inverted in this case. And so I'm thinking to go through and to set this to the all position, turn 4 on, everything else off. And that's the all position. And of course, those switches sometimes are kind of hard to see. Just to see if this thing will turn over some digits. I've got the revision 02 BIOS in there. And we have to be careful for, okay. We have arrows, and that's the towards nearest motherboard edge here, which is on this system. Okay. That's interesting for that. It's got a notch, but it's got a portion of the PCB that goes into the 16-bit portion of the ISA connector. Okay, so that we're seeing turn over. Maybe even kind of a little bit visible, at least. Of course, all the LEDs are visible that way at the front, although the legends are silk screened on both sides. And remember, this is the later board that we had some issues with on microchannel systems. It was inducing more errors than it was fixing. So there we see IBM DOS version 4.00. So yeah, we saw the codes turn over there for the all position. I'd sure like to decode which one it is of that. '80 is all on. And for this, since it's got that switch on the underside, it's just not an easy rotation. Okay, so this is port 80. I'm not seeing this turn over. I'm going to do it brief. So next we're going to do, you try 90. So 84. I want to try 90 again, and that's position 2 being off. Position 2 being off. I know that that's very challenging to see front on. Okay. Okay, that's port 90. I'm still not seeing that turnover. Okay. Let's try that 190, which is 3 and 4 on. Three and 4 on. And 1 and 2 off. The other board didn't have a 190. Okay, and that's what it was. 190. And so the older board doesn't have where it only tests on 90, not 190. So this older board will not work for your, at least the ISA models, the PS2 mold 2526, the mold 3026. I'll test this on a, it's got me curious now for the other ones. I'll have to test on a regular Model 80 as well. Or excuse me, Model 30. I can test from for this, or this, as the case may be. So, yeah, it took all that to go through and figure out what the IO port decode was for that. We had to go through and set that all just to make sure it was turning over. And I think the parallel port postcode reader is just a lot easier, although we have these signals and other things there as well. So this time I'll boot from the hard drive. And I can go through and do an outro easy enough as well. So that was crazy. Port 190 hex is the postcode for these, at least the ISA models that I've tested so far that use the same planar. Just really odd. I've never heard of port 190 hex for a postcode reader, but we learn why it's there now. But in any regard, if you learned something from this, I certainly did, go ahead and click on that like button. And as always, subscribe to my channel if you have not done so already. But this is IBM Museum. That's all I have for now. Thank you.